Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. To fans' huge relief, all 6 English Premier League clubs quit the European Super League and hopes for the league itself are all but over. Former US policeman Derek Chauvin is found guilty on all 3 charges relating to the death of George Floyd. And Russia is building up its troops near the Ukrainian border, and Ukraine is calling for more economic sanctions. All 6 English Premier League football clubs have quit the breakaway European Super League. The fans previously angry at the league's creation now have cause for celebration. NTD's Neil Woodrow has the story.
The main architect of the Super League, Juventus FC chairman Andrea Agnelli, was asked if the league could continue now with just 5 or 6 teams involved.
Look, I think, to be frank and honest, no. Evidently, that's not the case. So, I mean, I wouldn't be talking so much about where that project has gone. I mean, I don't think that that project is now still up and running.
Manchester City were the first to back out of the European Super League venture on Tuesday evening, followed by Chelsea and the rest of the English clubs. Today, plans for the new league are all but over. Fans were quick to celebrate the news of their club's withdrawal, leading some to feel that apologies are in order. Liverpool's owner John Henry on Wednesday had this to say to fans.
I want to apologize to all the fan supporters of Liverpool Football Club for the disruption I caused over the past 48 hours. It goes without saying, but should be said, that the project put forward was never going to stand without the support of the fans. No one ever thought differently in England. Over these 48 hours, you were very clear that it would not stand. We heard you.
He went on to say that he was responsible for this endeavour and had let them down. And more clubs from the founding 12 on Wednesday began considering to quit the deal. Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan the first to make it official. Fans were a big force in the change of direction of the clubs involved and were quick to make their feelings known.
I'm disappointed with my club, which is Arsenal, around the corner, because they were in it, involved in it, and now they've decided, because of people in the street and the fans, they said they don't want it, and so they've pulled out, which is a good thing.
Other pressure came from the Prime Minister, who expressed his satisfaction on the outcome.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the decision taken by the 6 English football teams not to join the European Super League. The announcement was the right result for football fans, for clubs and for communities across the country.
I spoke with Andy Walsh from the Football Supporters Association. He said it was tremendous, the solidarity shown across the game to block the European Super League. He said that absentee owners of some of the big clubs do not understand the fans, players and administrators in the game.
They're completely wrapped up in themselves and their own ego. They think that cash and wealth buys them everything. But whilst they might own our football clubs in terms of its stocks and shares, they certainly are not aware of its soul and its history.
But when fans at the grounds came out in numbers, they couldn't be ignored.
And it was the reaction and response from supporters on the streets last night, as much as anything else, just telling the owners this was wrong and that they themselves would walk away from football if this occurred.
While these celebrations over the collapse of the project die down, the backlash against the managers involved may continue. Liverpool great Graham Souness is quoted as saying, "They were going to sell the souls of our major football institutions. I don't know how these clubs will manage to get back on side." Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Over in the US, in the George Floyd case, the jury came to a verdict. It found former police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all charges. NTD's Christina Kim has the story.
Repeated comments about how
the jury finds Derek Chauvin guilty on all charges. He's charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty.
The jury came to their conclusion after they began deliberating around midday Monday. George Floyd's family said in a written statement that painfully earned justice has arrived, and the verdict has significant implications for the country and even the world. President Biden weighed in on the case earlier.
I'm praying the verdict is the right verdict, which is, I think it's overwhelming in my view. I wouldn't say that unless the jury was sequestered now, not hear me say that.
This after Judge Peter Cahill, who presided over the trial, strongly admonished politicians commenting on the issue.
I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Biden will weigh in more after the verdict. The judge said they will have sentencing in 8 weeks. Chauvin's bail was revoked and he was taken into custody by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. It's unclear if the defense will appeal this decision. Christina Kim, NTD News.
The EU's medicine regulator says it's found a possible link between Johnson & Johnson's vaccine and rare blood clots. But it says the jab's benefits still outweigh the risk. The European Medicines Agency says a warning about blood clots must be added to the vaccine's labels. This was also required for rival vaccine maker AstraZeneca. Distribution of the J&J vaccine is currently on hold in the US after regulators recommended to investigate cases of rare blood clotting. And in other news, satellite images show that in recent weeks, Russia has continued building up its forces in Crimea and on its border with Ukraine. Ukraine expects the troops to reach over 120,000 in a week.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says Russia is building up troops on Ukraine's border from 3 sides, and the scale is larger than in 2014 when Russia forcibly annexed Crimea.
In about a week, they are expected to reach a combined force of over 120,000 troops. This does not mean that they will stop building up their forces at that number.
Satellite images show a build-up of Russian deployments, aircraft and vehicles at air bases and training areas in Crimea and near Ukrainian borders. Kyiv and Moscow have traded blame for a rise in casualties in the conflict in recent weeks. Russia says its troop build-up is a 3-week snap military drill to test combat readiness and accuses the US and NATO of provocative activity in the waters and airspace of the Black Sea. Kuleba says Russian snipers were killing Ukrainian soldiers to provoke Ukraine to counterattack.
We are a country that has one of the longest borders with Russia. We do not have NATO troops in Ukraine, but we do have over hundreds of thousands of Russian troops at our border. This is a clear answer to who is threatening whom.
Ukraine is calling for its allies and partners to take more effective actions to prevent Russia's further escalation and to make the Kremlin realize the dire consequences it will face. Kuleba says personal sanctions are not enough.
They do not stop the war. Its history proves that only painful economic sanctions can make a difference.
Ukraine is calling for Moscow to recommit to a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine, where Russian-backed forces have fought Ukrainian troops. Kyiv says the conflict has killed 14,000 people since 2014.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson rejects allegations that he gave preferential treatment to Sir James Dyson. It comes after text messages revealed a promise Johnson made to the entrepreneur.
The BBC reports Prime Minister Boris Johnson personally promised inventor Sir James Dyson he would fix an issue over the tax status of his employees. That's according to texts seen by the broadcaster. The Labour leader on Wednesday said the Prime Minister is giving favours to his rich friends.
How many other people with the Prime Minister's personal number has he given preferential treatment to?
The text exchange took place in March 2020, when the UK government was appealing to companies to supply ventilators to the NHS. The Prime Minister says his actions were entirely justified.
We had 9,000 ventilators in this country, Mr. Speaker. We secured 22,000 as a result of that ventilator challenge. I think it was entirely the right thing to do, to work with all potential makers of ventilators at that time, Mr. Speaker.
Sir James, whose firm is now based in Singapore, wanted assurance that his staff would not have to pay additional tax if they came to the UK to work on the project. Labour says there's evidence that Johnson breached the ministerial code. A government spokesman says it was the right course to take in extraordinary times to ensure the NHS had the equipment it needed.
Video sharing app TikTok could face a damages claim worth of billions of pounds. They are alleged to have illegally harvested millions of children's private data.
The former Children's Commissioner for England, Anne Longfield, has launched a legal claim against TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance. She is making the claim on behalf of 3.5 million children in the UK aged under 13. Longfield alleges that every child that has used TikTok since May 2018 may have had their private personal information illegally collected by TikTok. In May 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation was introduced to give better protection for people's privacy. The legal claim argues that TikTok and ByteDance breached data protection rules by willfully taking children's personal information without sufficient warning, transparency, or the necessary consent required by law, meaning parents and children don't know what is being done with their private information. The claim calls for compensation for the millions of potentially affected children, which is said could run into billions of pounds. TikTok's policy in the UK do not allow children under 13 to use the app, and those downloading it are asked to input their age when they sign up, but figures suggest that many under 13s use the platform. Although TikTok's policy on data collection is listed on its website, Ms. Longfield says she feels TikTok's practices are hidden and shady. The app asks for children's name, address, date of birth, their likes, interests, and habits. Longfield says you shouldn't be doing that when it's kids. In response to the action, TikTok says it has robust policies in place to protect all users, and teenage users in particular. They say they will vigorously defend the action. TikTok is one of the world's most popular apps, especially among young people, and has around 100 million users in Europe alone.
Still to come, the German parliament passes a controversial law giving the government more power to enforce lockdown restrictions. That and more when we return.